The following announcement has been paid for by the new Howl Order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, I'll cover it all here. Man, the Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I wanted to come on today and offer up a public service announcement that I don't feel like I should have to make, but I'm going to make it anyway because I'm starting to hear this more and more as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season, closer and closer. Now 5 days and counting until Ronald and company are now gone. I start to hear more and more about Washington turning this thing around next year, right? Being, chief competitors in the NFC East next year. Turning this thing around like Detroit did, like Houston did, as if those teams turned it around overnight. There are no shortcuts on the road to success, okay? And as a fan, I need you to understand that the two things that you can exhibit the most during this time as we transition from one regime and a total overhaul of the front office and really this organization as a whole to where we want to ultimately be is patience and perseverance. And there's too little of those two things as fans in today's society. No one's patient anymore. Everybody wants it right now. Everybody wants instant gratification. We live in a microwavable society. Everybody wants to push it into the microwave, push the 30-second button, and have it be ready to go instantly. I want to win. And I want to win now. You've waited this long time and you've waited 20 years, you've waited 30 years, you've waited 10 years, you've waited 7 years, you haven't seen a winner. You're going to have to wait some more, okay? The likelihood is you're going to have to wait some more. I'm not telling you that it's impossible. Teams turn it around in 1 year all the time. The Giants did it last year, right? It's not impossible. And in a league set up for parity and for worst to first to happen, it could happen. But understand that sustained success does not happen overnight. And one of my favorite things to preach to people is looking at what somebody else has and fawning over that, but not actually taking into consideration what sacrifices that person had to make to get to where they are and the things that they have. You only see the end result. You didn't see the struggle, the pain, the strife to get to where they are, to have the things that they have, to enjoy the fruits of their labor. You don't see all of that. You just see the final result. You see the end product. The Detroit Lions didn't just magically end up 11-5 this year and look to be in a position to be good for the next 3-4 years in the foreseeable future. Even with Jared Goff at quarterback, they didn't just magically appear out of nowhere into being really good. They hired a GM in 2021. That GM hired Dan Campbell in 2021, and then they promptly went 3-13. You're not talking about that now, are you? The next year, in 2022, they started the season 1-6. That's right, Dan Campbell was 4-19 in his first 23 games and was in danger of being fired before they went on that hot streak to finish up 2022, winning 8 of their final 10 games, getting to 9-8, barely missing out on the postseason, making a statement in Week 18 last year on the road at Green Bay when their season was done and Green Bay needed to win to make it to the postseason. And they went in there, pulled out all the stops, including a trick play at the end of the game to preserve the victory and put Green Bay out of the playoffs. And we thought that could be it for Aaron Rodgers. Now they're 11-5. Now they're one of the best teams in the NFC. And it took them a while to get here. I don't hear a lot of fans talking about that process. I just hear them talking about, I want to be like Detroit. Well, Detroit went 3-13 in the first year of their new GM and new head coach. And that was with a veteran quarterback, I may add. We're going to do all of this with a new GM, probably a new team president, a new GM, a new head coach, and a new quarterback. So expect some lumps, some bumps, some bruises. Expect some struggles. For some of you, you have weak stomachs. You can't handle it. You can't handle losing. You can't handle another bad season. You can't handle a quarterback struggling. I've watched you struggle this year with a quarterback struggling. I've watched you in past years struggle with a quarterback struggling. I know some of you aren't built for that. The minute the next guy comes in here and starts to struggle, he's trash, and you start looking towards the draft for the next guy. I'm not talking to all of you. I'm just talking to some of you. If it applies to you, wear it. If it doesn't, then let it go right over your head, right down your back. Those of you know who I'm talking about. And if you don't want to admit it, fine. A lot of you, I'm looking at the Texans. Hey, they got a first-year head coach. They got a first-year quarterback. Look at what the Texans are doing. Yeah, but did you see what happened in 2021 when they hired their new GM, Nick Caserio? Did you see what he did in 2021 by hiring David Culley? Trying to, in effect, keep Deshaun Watson on board because Watson and Culley had a relationship. When that failed, they fired Culley after the season. Hired Lovie Smith to take on a no-win situation without Deshaun Watson and starting Davis Mills at quarterback. They were awful and ended up with the number 2 overall pick. Fired him as well. And then hired DeMeco Ryans, right? So 3 years, that GM essentially had a chance to turn over the roster, albeit 3 different head coaches in that same time span, right? So a new coach every year that GM has been in Houston. A new coach was there every single year, and a new starting quarterback was there every single year. But he continued to turn over that roster. Continued to make small little changes. And then finally, when DeMeco Ryans shows up and they get CJ Stroud and they make all of these moves, had a really good draft again, it all starts to come together. Bad in 2021, bad in 2022, finally starting to see the fruits of their labor in 2023. It took 3 years in Detroit. It took 3 years in Houston for them to actually get to where they are now. These transformations didn't happen overnight, fans. Guys and gals out there, I'm just telling you, some of you are looking for the quick fix. If you haven't learned over the last 25 years that quick fixes don't get it done under the Daniel Snyder regime, that's all we ever tried. Every time we ran over a nail, we never decided to go get a new tire. We always wanted to go and get the tire repaired. Oh, just put some Fix-A-Flat on it. It'll be fine. Oh, what's that commercial with that crazy guy that's always slapping that damn tape on stuff? Go get some of that shit. Put it on the tire. We'll be fine. And every damn time we get to the finish line and the tire blows out on us. Or hell, we don't even make it to the finish line half the damn time. Like this year, we didn't even make it to the damn finish line. Last year, we almost made it to the finish line. Tire blew out in week 17. There are no shortcuts here, guys, gals. There are no shortcuts in this thing. If you want to win, if you want sustained success, we're going to have to do it the right way. And finally, you as a fan should be committed after seeing what we've done the wrong way for over 2 decades. You should be more than thrilled at the prospects of doing it the right way. And whatever that entails, whether it takes us 2 years or 3 years to turn it around, you should be hunkering down and preparing yourself for whatever's to come. We all want to win. And we would love nothing more than that to happen next season. And it could. I'm not telling you that it won't. I'm just telling you that the likelihood is that it won't. It's not impossible. It's just highly unlikely. There are a lot of things that are going to be stacked against this team next year. New front office structure, whether that includes a team president or not, remains to be seen on the football side. You're going to have a new GM, you're going to have a new head coach, and you're going to have a new starting quarterback, more likely than not. You're going to have a lot of new pieces on this roster, whether it's offense or defense. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. There's going to be a lot of change. And for all of that to come together, the only thing we will have in our favor is the unknown, right? Other teams won't really know what to expect now. Again, if we hire an offensive coordinator from elsewhere, they'll just look at what that coordinator did at his last stop and what his principles are and what he believes in it. They'll try to game plan against us based off of that, but they won't know because we'll have different personnel. We'll have different things that we will be able to do because we have different players on our team, and our quarterback will be much different in terms of his skill set. No matter who we draft, he's going to be a better athlete than Jared Goff. So you can't just solely base what we will do off of what Ben Johnson say. If he's the head coach, and I'm assuming I'm going to speak that into existence. That's the guy that I want. It may not happen, but that's the guy that I want. So I'm going to speak that into existence. Jared Goff is not an athlete. Whomever we draft, assuming we draft a quarterback, if we don't, and it's Sam Howell, he's a better athlete than Jared Goff as well. So either way, it's going to look different. But I'm just telling you, I'm just preparing you, I'm just informing you that these transformations don't happen overnight. I know you would hope that it does. I know that you want to look around and you want to convince yourself that they do. But take it from an NFL fan that has been watching these things happen over and 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 over again. Rarely do these things happen overnight. So while I'm going to be just as excited as the next fan, and of course, by the time we get to August and we start playing preseason games and all of the hoopla of the offseason has worn off and now we're ready for actual tackle football. And if this team comes out and plays really well in the preseason and we get excited and hyped up, of course, there will be a lot of fanfare and there'll be a lot of hype. And we may, I do this all the time. When I get excited and I see the potential, I'm liable to throw out 10, 11, 12 wins. That's my move. I'm guilty as charged. Okay? If I can somehow devise a path to 10, 11, or 12 wins, I'm going to do it. In the last 2 years, I've seen a path to double-digit wins. Now, we didn't travel on that path, clearly, right? Let it sink in for a second. We went undefeated in the preseason, which doesn't matter. It's not worth a damn. But what is worth a damn is we started the season 2-0. Let that sink in for a second. We started the season 2-0. We've lost 13 out of our last 15 games. Do you know how inept you have to be as a team to lose 13 out of 15 and are currently on the worst losing streak in the league at 7 games? Do you understand how bad things have to get to do that in an NFL season? It's not easy to win in this league. It's not easy to win consistently in this league. If you want those two things to occur here, you need to exhibit patience and perseverance. Okay? Patience to allow all the factors in play to work. A lot of moving parts, a lot of new pieces, a lot of things going on at once. Just step back and allow these guys to do their jobs, or gals to do their jobs, without you breathing down their necks, screaming, fire them and get another set of people in here. Too many of you are impulsive like David Tepper. Just sit the hell down and shut up and let the damn system work. Whether it works or not, we'll find out together. But damn it, it's not going to work in 16 or 17 games. It could, but the likelihood is it won't. So just relax. Shit might not work in 32 games or 33 games or 34 games. You may have to wait 2 seasons and going into that 3rd season for us to finally bear fruit here. Whatever the case may be, you are going to have to persevere. There's some things that aren't going to work. And as a fan, you're going to have to be okay with that. Power through and understand that there's still a vision for the GM, team president, head coach, etc., etc. There's a vision. And because this one thing didn't work doesn't mean the vision isn't going to work. Just a minor setback. Just a little detour on this road to success. But you got to stay the course. I hope some of you, because I know all of you, I'm preaching to every single one of you, but I know my message isn't going to get through to every single one of you, okay? I am fully aware of this. Some of you don't give a damn. If there aren't instant results, you ain't trying to hear the shit. It is what it is. But for the rest of you, understand that while this could be a miraculous turnaround next year, and I'm rooting like hell for it, understand that these things usually take time. You want to be the Lions? You want to see the growth that the Texans have shown this year? That didn't happen overnight. That's for damn sure. The Jets tried to take a shortcut. We've tried that same shortcut. Look at how it worked out for them. Shit doesn't work. Taking shortcuts. You got to build it into a winner. You can take a shortcut when you do it the way the Rams have done it. They went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. They won their division almost every year. And then they went out and got Matthew Stafford. They were ready. That's when you can take a shortcut. The Jets were the laughingstock of the AFC East the year prior, and they decided we're going to go out and get Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to change everything. And maybe it would have. Maybe it would have. But it didn't. He got hurt. Because that's what 40-year-olds do. They get hurt. There are no shortcuts on the road to success. Sustained success. Hopefully we're the exception to the rule, but I'm not gearing up for that. And I hope a lot of you out there understand that premise as well. In other news, however, I asked the question yesterday. What's most important, the GM or the head coach? Overwhelmingly, which did surprise me a little bit, you all said the GM. Now, there were various reasons as to why, but I think most of you understand the equal importance of both. They're equally yoked, if you will, the GM and the head coach. Obviously, the GM is over the head coach, presides over that head coach, usually is the one that selects that head coach. It hasn't been the case here in Washington for decades, but we're actually going to have a front office structure that is set up in which the GM does select the head coach. Oh, what a concept, right? But understanding that those two must be in lockstep to have the kind of success that we're looking for is paramount. It's paramount. And a lot of you understand that, and you're looking forward to seeing Washington do it the right way. And we all have different ideas of what this looks like, who the GM should be, who the head coach should be, this, that, and the third. All of that is irrelevant. We all want the same thing. We all want the same thing at the end of the day. I contend that the GM is the most important piece in all of this. But like some of you said, not by much. Obviously, the GM is in control of everything, but I think a lot of you hammered home the point that I've been trying to make for quite some time, and that's the conversation surrounding long-term versus short-term health and success, right? As a GM, your job is to focus on both short-term and long-term success. You give the coach all the pieces that he needs to have short-term, immediate success. You scour the waiver wire. You look at other teams' practice squad. You look at any trade opportunities prior to the trade deadline. You do all of the things that a GM, a good GM, does to make sure that you put your head coach in the best position to succeed now, right? But you're also thinking about the salary cap, draft capital, what is coming down the pipeline. Can we re-sign this player? Is this guy going to walk for nothing? Do we need to trade this guy at the trade deadline? Similar to what happened this year, right? We don't technically have a GM, but Eugene Shin came in here and told our owner, Josh Harris, hey, not going to be able to re-sign these guys. Maybe you can bring back Montez Sweat if you'd like, but you're not going to get a better offer if you're thinking about signing him back to this team. Cool. But if you're thinking about getting something for him, you're not going to get a better offer than what the Bears are offering right now. So if you're not sure if you're going to re-sign him in the offseason, you better take this second-round pick you're getting from the Bears because you're not going to get a better deal than this. That's what a GM does. That's what a GM does. Is he looks to the future. Ron Rivera did not want to trade Montez Sweat. He was cool with Chase Young kicking rocks. He wanted no parts of Montez Sweat. Jack Del Rio told us in the press conference that he had nothing to do with those guys being traded. And he wanted you to know that he didn't want those guys traded. So that you know when this defense gets worse, I got my hands tied behind my back. At that point, all of that was falling on deaf ears because the defense wasn't great with those guys in the lineup anyway. But it wasn't going to make the defense better. Despite some of you thinking this was a, addition by subtraction type of situation. Watch how this defense responds with these guys gone. Okay. Okay, smart guy. How'd that work out for you? Anyway, I think that is the biggest conversation that needs to be had is long-term versus short-term. A coach's job is to win and win now. He can't think about the next year or the year after that or the year after that because he may not be here 2 years from now in that same position if he does not win, if he does not get results. I just told you that the Texans GM was hired, Nick Caserio, in 2021. He then hires David Culley, then fires him after 1 year of service, hires their defensive coordinator that year, Lovie Smith, then fires him after 1 year of service after the season, and then hires DeMeco Ryans. You can't think about next year or the year after because you don't know. The Panthers owner David Tepper hired Frank Reich to come in here and coach up Bryce Young, and 11 games into his first season, he fired the man. Don't cry for Frank Reich, okay? That man got a 5-year deal, and he'll be paid by the Panthers for the next 4 years to sit on his ass and do nothing. That's a hell of a retirement plan, if I could say so myself. Don't feel bad for him. He's getting paid handsomely to ride off into the sunset. But again, Frank Reich didn't think he was going to have 11 games to get this shit turned around in Carolina. But that's what happened, right? At the end of the day, the coach's job is to focus on the day in, day out operation of trying to get all of his players on the same page, get all of his coaching staff on the same page to try to win that week's game. And to win enough of those games at the season's end to qualify for bonus football. And then once you qualify for bonus football, to see how far you can go once you get there. So a GM's job is to help that coach in his quest to win as many football games as he can in the immediate, future, in a present day. But his job is also, and this is what the coach doesn't have on his plate, his job is also to make sure that the future is healthy and bright. As can be. Making tough decisions as to re-signing this player, letting that player walk, slapping the franchise tag on this guy or not slapping the franchise tag on this guy, trading this player or not trading this player, trading for that player or not trading for that player. These are the types of decisions that a general manager makes. So I think we can all agree they're both important. But I think the GM is just slightly ahead of the head coach. but they both need to be in lockstep. If you want a healthy situation, somebody in the comment section made a great point. Now, this is old hat, and things are done so differently that it's hard to really, see that transpiring again in today's NFL because of, the way things are set up with the salary cap being what it is, and free agency is a thing now. It wasn't really a thing back in those days. It just became a thing when this transpired. But, somebody brought up, that Joe Gibbs and Bobby Beathard, their relationship really deteriorated towards the end of their run here in Washington. And it did. And it got to a point where somebody had to go. And Jack Kent Cooke chose Joe Gibbs to stay, and he moved on from Bobby Beathard. Beathard then went on to become the architect of the Chargers organization that ultimately went to the Super Bowl. Now, they got their asses reamed by the 49ers, and that get the monkey off my back, Steve Young, Ricky Waters, Jerry Rice team with Deion Sanders on defense, and Dana Stubblefield and Ken Norton Jr. and all of those guys. However, the Chargers were a nothing franchise, and he turned them into a Super Bowl franchise. So a GM is extremely important, right? A GM is extremely important. If you get the right one, he can turn you into a winning organization. If you get a guy with an eye for talent that has a good handle on the salary cap, it can change your fortunes very, very quickly. And again, the biggest thing that I'm looking for with this organization over the next 3 years or so is identifying and establishing an identity. Who are we? What do we stand for? What kind of players fit our DNA profile? We haven't had any sort of direction as to what a Commander looks like, what a Redskin looks like, what a football team player looks like in over 3 decades. This wasn't just a Snyder problem. This persisted well before Snyder took over. Once Joe Gibbs 1.0 and Bobby Beathard essentially left, we really didn't have an identity as to what a Redskin, what a Washington football team, what a Commander looked like. You look at the best teams in the league, the teams that are in the playoffs just about every year, and they have a DNA profile as to what they're looking for in their players. What those players represent, the grit, the toughness, the athletic profile, all of that stuff. You look at the Seahawks, you know what they're looking for. You look at the Steelers, you know what they're looking for. You look at the Ravens, you can look at a player and say he looks like a Baltimore Raven. The Chiefs do a great job of finding guys that fit what they want to do, bring them in, ultra successful. That's what we're looking to establish here in Washington. A great general manager establishes that from the top. If we can get that, coupled with a head coach that is able to take that talent and get the most out of it, we got ourselves a winner here, and we got a chance to restore what was once the proudest franchise in the NFL. We have a chance to restore that rich history. That's how big this offseason is. I can't spell this out for you any more than I already have. That's why this is such a big offseason. We got a chance to turn this thing around and get it back to where it used to be. It's not going to happen overnight, as I said at the top of the show. But you take those steps to turning it around this offseason, right? You take those steps by getting the front office intact, by finding the right guys, hopefully finding the right GM, finding the right head coach, who then hires a great staff. You want to know something else that's really been refreshing with Detroit? Is their staff. They've got a bunch of ex-players on that staff. Antoine Randall, Mark Brunell, Aaron Glenn's their defensive coordinator. Deuce Staley was there. He's now gone. Like Dan Campbell came in and he brought a bunch of his ex-football buddies with him, and those guys know ball, they coach it up well, and the players have responded with their play on the field. We can sit here and talk about the GM, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Those are the guys that get all of the credit, right? When things go well, those guys get all the publicity. Those guys get all the credit. When things don't go well, they get all the blame. But you know who's a huge part of why those guys are successful? Those position coaches. We've seen it this year in the secondary. Everybody wanted to shit on our secondary coach who was here for years, right? And I said, man, Chris Harris is impressive. And there were a lot of fans that said, Chris Harris ain't done shit. I don't see what y'all see. And I'm like, I'm telling you, you look at Cam Curl, you look at what Kendall Fuller did. Remember, Kendall Fuller, the Chiefs moved on from Kendall Fuller. They weren't as happy with him as we were when we traded him to him. They had him playing all over the place. He got Kendall Fuller back to where he was when we moved on from him. Benjamin St. Juste came in here and played good football. Not great. We've seen a big regression from him this year. You don't think Emmanuel Forbes would have been helped by the presence of a Chris Harris? They fired the defensive backs coach. That tells you all you need to know about how they felt about the job Brent Wieselmeyer was doing. Was he a scapegoat? Sure he was. But he also wasn't doing a good job. The secondary stunk. There was no communication on the back end. We were giving up big plays all over the place. Quan Martin has actually gotten better since Brent Wieselmeyer has been fired. Quan Martin is playing his best football of the season. Could that be coincidentally because he's played a lot more ball now? He's seen a lot more things. He's getting more comfortable. The game is slowed down for him. Sure, all of those reasons could be why he's playing better. Or he could just be being coached better right now. That could be a reason too. Who knows? All I'm telling you is positional coaches matter. They do. You want to get the most out of your offensive line? You got to have an offensive line coach who can do that. We were so excited about the tight end position. Why? Because we had a tight ends coach that was getting the most out of our tight ends, and then he retires. Tight ends have gone downhill since. We could attribute it to the tight ends coach not being here anymore. Or we could just say the tight ends aren't very good. You choose. I just know coaching matters. So as much as we talk about the GM, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, we need them to bring a hell of an offensive line coach, a hell of a linebackers coach, a hell of a D-line coach, a hell of a wide receivers coach, a hell of a secondaries coach. We need all of that shit to be good here. Quarterbacks coach that gets it, that is in tune, that is in sync with the quarterback. The quarterback's coach should be the quarterback's best friend. When he comes off the field after a drive, one of the first guys the quarterback encounters usually on good teams is the quarterback's coach. When you watch the 49ers, and obviously when you have an offensive-minded head coach, the head coach is going to want to talk to the quarterback. He's the one calling the plays 9 times out of 10. So when something happens, Sean McVay is usually the first one over there with Matthew Stafford. But you know who else is over there? Quarterback's coach. You watch the 49ers. Brock Purdy comes off the field. He missed a throw. He threw a pick, whatever. First guy you're going to see him over there with, Brian Griese, quarterback's coach. Kyle Shanahan's not going to be that far behind, but Brian Griese is going to be right there next to him. That's the importance of a really good quarterback's coach. All of that stuff is important. Hopefully we get all of that shit right. That's what's going to ultimately speed up the process. Good players, even better coaches. Anyway, I digress. I hope you weren't expecting me to give you their first look at the Cowboys. Who gives a shit? 5 days left. That's what I give a shit about. Sam Howell is going to be the starter. Good for him. I'm happy for him. All right. Glad to see him go all the way through. This organization hasn't had a guy start all 17 games or all 16 games or the entire season since Kirk Cousins' last season here in 2017. So I'm glad somebody's going to start and finish the season, even though they didn't want him to. See what Sam does on his way out. Last year it ended good for him in this same spot. I'm like, hey, Sam, hey, buddy. Let's not do the shit you did last year, okay? Don't need a win over the Cowboys in a meaningless Week 18 game. Don't think we're going to get it either. I'm not worried. Some of you are. I'm not. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Remember, we're live tomorrow night. Now that there are no more Thursday night games, we are back to our original time slot of Thursday at 9:30 p. So look forward to chopping it up with you guys live tomorrow night. We'll talk about everything under the sun that pertains to this team, including a poll question that I put out last week. We will read the results, and there were some really interesting comments that were left under that poll that I may get to tomorrow as well. So tomorrow will be a pretty fun show, if I may say so myself. Hopefully you'll be able to join me tomorrow night, 9:30 p, as we have our final Commanders Nightly News live show of the season. Until then, you guys take care. God bless. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.